In fact, we're recording, and I just want to make sure everyone, we're talking about different ways you can leverage the power of the metaverse, things that have worked for us, things that haven't worked so well. Moving forward, what I would encourage all lawyers to look at to get their voice heard above the noise. That's what today's show is all about. All right, so we talked about having a mindset, about really leveraging these new technologies to stand out, to build your brand, to expand it from local to global. When it comes to marketing, when it comes to creating client experiences, you can add the metaverse option into your existing law firm game plan. Okay, that brings everyone current to what I just said live. So having said all that, the first thing is understand this mindset, give your team permission to start playing around with the free and paid metaverse platforms, and embrace everyone. When they make a mistake, it's okay, pick them up and have them continue to try to move forward in these spaces. The mindset, I think, is the most key critical issue when it comes to tapping into these new spaces. The next thing I want people to focus on is execution. What I've noticed with the metaverse and Web3 technologies is this stuff can be somewhat complicated. The links that we use, NFTs giving us access to some of these spaces, it can become so complicated that you're not going to get clients or opposing counsel or potential clients to even use these spaces unless you keep it simple. So the first thing I want everyone to think about is when using the metaverse, when sharing access links, when participating like we are right now, reduce the friction. That's the biggest mistake I see lawyers and other professionals make. They make it too complicated for us to join each other in these spaces. I want you to think about the metaverse as being like Zoom. You want to create a scenario where you can just send out a link and have a potential client or a group of people, if it's a public event, click on the link and join you in these spaces. We like using platforms that allow clients to join us in the metaverse using one of these, using a tablet, using a laptop, desktop, or my favorite, a headset. Not these are for paddleboarding, but a traditional Oculus Quest 2 or maybe the new Apple headset. You want to keep it easy and convenient. Most people that access many of the platforms that we're going to be talking about, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so bear with me, don't have headsets. In fact, 70 to 80% of the people will access these platforms using their laptop, their desktop, or their phone. So you want to embrace platforms that allow you and your clients, you and your expert witnesses, you and other mediators, judges, whoever it may be, to easily access the platform. That's something I would really pay attention to. In order to do that, oftentimes use redirect technology. What I mean by that is I know after today's show, the Metaverse Bar Association may be welcoming attorneys and other individuals that are watching to join them in the metaverse. I've got to bolt to another meeting, so I can't make it. But what I wanted to do is walk my talk and show you how easy this is. So at my site, mitchjackson.com, what we've done is we set up a redirect page. If you want to see what our corporate law firm metaverse space looks like, and if the MBA, the Metaverse Bar Association, would like to use this link to meet with people, it's fine with me. It's a public space. You simply go to mitchjackson.com/MBA. That will take you into the spatial venue. That's how simple it is. Instead of sending someone 2 lines of code, use redirect messages to keep the friction low. Use QR codes, once again, to take that long URL or coordinates to your metaverse site and share that with a client on your phone. Share that on the website with a QR code, okay? Use this technology to keep access and the entry point into your metaverse spaces simple and easy. We're using Canva, C-A-N-V-A, to create our QR codes. We're also now using ChatGPT-4, one of the plugins that come with GPT-4. You can search and find, just search for QR codes, allows you to create QR codes on the fly. It's really, really cool. It's free other than the cost of GPT-4, which is 20 bucks a month, best 20 bucks a month I'm spending. And so use these technologies to make access very, very easy. All right, so the environments for lawyers. We're interested in using the metaverse. How are we going to use it? What type of first impression do we want to make? I think it's critically important, at least for me, to make sure that I satisfy my clients' needs when they come into cases. And real quick, let me just check the chat. See if I have any messages. Okay, we're good. And so we like using metaverse spaces that have a very professional look to them. We use metaverse spaces that, like I said, allow our clients, allow third parties to access just like a Zoom on their phone, their tablet, their laptop, or with a headset. And so I'm using metaverse spaces, for example, spatial.io. It's a metaverse space that provides free templates. It allows you to come in and build conference rooms. It allows you to build venues. As a matter of fact, I want to show you another example of how this works for those of you joining me a little bit late. So what you see here is this is a typical conference room. This is a free conference room that Spatial allows. And literally within seconds, I can put videos up on the wall. You can take a client logo, a client YouTube branding video and put it up on the wall before a client joins you in this space. You can see I'm dressed in a suit. You can change outfits quickly and easily. Let me go ahead and just bounce over to another one of our spaces because I want you to see what the options are. Our law firm campus, where we meet with clients. We're going to be in the process of subleasing space out. I want you to see what it looks like. It's a beautiful campus environment. And you can see I just click and I'm in. And so what we'll do is we'll meet in a room using some of the tools and techniques that I'll be sharing with you when it comes to communication, using your voice, using anchor points, and you can see what it looks like. And once again, I'm accessing this from my laptop. When you have a headset on, it looks and feels like you're in the actual virtual campus. That's a photo of our in real life law firm in Laguna Niguel, California. And as you can see, and by the way, while I'm moving around, I want to encourage any questions that you may have. This is the time to ask them. But I want to just show you the different layouts between the conference room that I shared at the beginning of the show, some of the different law firm options. There is my senior partner, Lisa and I met in law school. She's been we've been practicing together ever since. In fact, we have our 34th anniversary coming up in a couple of months. All right, so that's the law firm. If you're giving a presentation, a seminar in the metaverse, I just want to show you another example of what that might look like. And once again, these are really easy spaces to set up and use. Let's see. This is the last example I'm going to show you, and then we're going to dive into some techniques. But I want to show you the different venues, like some of the things we're talking about. So I was actually interviewing someone at Spatial about some new technology. And so while we were talking on stage behind us, like you would see during any normal conference presentation, we had a PowerPoint slide showing, we were displaying videos with a couple of clicks. We had many of these seats filled. We're answering questions in real time. And also Spatial allows for real-time chat translations. So we're also taking questions from people in different languages. And it was just an amazing experience. So I wanted to just show you some of the different metaverse spaces that we're using. We're also using Engage VR. It's a similar type of metaverse environment. I know the Metaverse Bar Association is using several different other metaverse venues. I don't think it really comes down to what venue we're in. It's how you use the venue. I want you to think about these metaverse platforms as tools. And so keep that in mind. So you picked your metaverse environment that's professional. It displays and reflects, the message you're sharing, what type of firm you are, what type of quality of service you want to provide clients with. And you want to pay attention to how you dress your avatars, okay? One thing I didn't show you is you saw my avatar dressed in a business suit, which is great for business meetings. If I'm meeting with young entrepreneurs on startups, I have a couple of different avatar outfits I can click into. One is my board shorts, right? My typical surfer shorts, a Tommy Hilfiger top that I picked up from Tommy Hilfiger that transferred over to my avatar, a cap like this, it's like this in the metaverse. And I think for my Gen Z clients, they prefer having a more casual environment. We'll either be meeting poolside in the French Riviera, maybe at my ski chalet, which is another venue we have. And so you want to make sure you complement the client experience that you're trying to create with the metaverse venue you select for your firm, and how you dress as an avatar. Once again, think about using QR codes, redirects from your website, like I did at mitchjackson.com/MBA. I could have selected a client name for the extension. I could make that private password, so you have to access the password to gain access. That's what we do for our mediations. And it's super simple. Anybody can access the metaverse using these technologies. Bitly, if I didn't mention it, Bitly is another great tool, free tool to shorten long URLs when it comes to metaverse access for your clients. So we've talked about having the right mindset, putting yourself out there, being early and learning. Number 2, execution, keeping things simple, avoiding friction. Number 3, selecting the right metaverse environments, which are key. Now, this is my favorite. As a trial lawyer, what I've noticed is, and by the way, when I say as a trial lawyer, I love trying cases. I've tried over 70 cases to jury verdicts. I've won most of them. I think one of my strong points in trial is connecting with my jury, building rapport, becoming the leader in the courtroom. Excuse me. This is the best I've looked in 3 days, you guys. I've been just struggling with a really bad cold. And I think it's really important for professionals to also have that mindset of focusing on the communication when it comes to leveraging the power of the metaverse. A lot of gifted keynote speakers who are friends of mine, a lot of very well-known marketing and branding experts, some of the best trial lawyers on the planet I've been in metaverse events with, and because they weren't aware of what I'm about to tell you, their avatar was just kind of sitting there. It was just kind of floating like this in the air. There was no dialogue. There was no rapport building. There was no interaction. They weren't aware of what it takes, just like what it takes to communicate effectively in the courtroom. They weren't aware of these little things we're going to talk about to communicate effectively in the metaverse. So the first thing you want to do is understand, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. That's a famous quote by George Bernard Shaw. And in the metaverse, just setting up a venue, just showing up, doesn't mean you're going to be able to communicate effectively with your clients. You have to put some approaches and tools and techniques to use to effectively communicate in the metaverse. So the first thing I'd like to share with everybody is similar to how I started off my own introduction on this Zoom. There's an approach to making a good first impression. If you're asked to introduce yourself in the metaverse, if you have a client come in or you're standing on a digital stage talking to a group of people, rather than just talking about yourself, rather than just talking about what you're going to be sharing during today's presentation, I like this 3-step approach. Number 1 is you want to let everyone know you're excited to be there. Okay, so through your avatar, through your voice, you're excited to be there. That's the first step. The second step to this approach is incorporate your past and current experiences and what you bring to the table into today's presentation, into today's meeting, right? The third step is why this specific event, today's Zoom, is so important. So as an example, what I shared with you at the top of this, using those 3 steps, is when I was asked to introduce myself, what I said, and this is a process, and I would encourage everyone to learn this process. It works very, very well. And each step is either 1 or 2 sentences, is, look, I'm excited to be here. I think the metaverse is changing everything. Okay, that's the first step, right? The second step, incorporating my experience. I'm looking forward to incorporating 37 years of litigating cases and trying cases into this meeting, because I think what we've learned in real life applies to the metaverse. Okay, that's step number 2. That's why people should listen to you. That's why a new client that's shopping around for different lawyers is paying attention to you, right? You're letting that client know you're excited that he, she, or they is here. Number 2, you've got the expertise to add value and help them with their legal matter. And then number 3, this particular event, this Zoom, this client interaction is critically important, because we're going to be able to take you by the hand and get you going in the right direction in the least amount of time, and in a way that allows you to get back to your life and do what you want to do, follow your passions, your hobbies, your interests, and let us do the legwork, the heavy lifting, right? So when you're in the metaverse and you're meeting somebody for the first time, or you're starting off a presentation, use that 3-step approach. I think it kind of sets the stage, and it gives context to why people are there. Why should they listen to what you have to say? And if you're not interested in and excited about doing this, why should they be? So you really want to double down on letting everyone know why you're excited to be here today. So that three-step approach works really well. I use it in court during my jury selection before I start asking open-ended questions. I kind of incorporate that into what I'm doing, and I think you can do the same thing. Your voice, critically important to remember that through your use of an avatar, okay, in addition to the movement of that avatar, using anchor points during a Metaverse conference room presentation while you're on stage, we're communicating with our voice inflection, right? Using metaphors, using storytelling. Right now, my voice in my throat is killing me. Proof, throat lozenges, these are going in as soon as we're done. So I'm trying to hang in there, but I want everyone to really double down on focusing on their audio, focus on your voice communication when you're in the metaverse. Too many people focus just on the surrounding, hey, we're in the metaverse. Isn't this really cool? You should hire me, to what their avatar looks like instead of paying attention to what they say. And what I've done is I actually did an article some time ago. Let me see if I can bring this up. Let's see what shares. Yes, good. Okay. So this was last October or September, boy, a year ago. 12 tips for building. No, you know what? That's not what I want to show you. Hang on. Sorry about that, everyone. I wrote an article on my LinkedIn newsletter. It's titled How to Communicate. We're going to get back to that last tab in a second. How to communicate with your voice on social, audio, and in the metaverse. And in this link, and if you go to my LinkedIn newsletter, the AI Web3 and Metaverse newsletter, you'll find that article. It's probably about 6 months old. What I did is I broke down a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So if you hear me say something about using metaphors or voice inflection and you want to dive a little bit deeper, that article is a deep dive on what works in the metaverse. In that article, though, I want to highlight, I shared a YouTube video by Julian Treasure. And Julian's YouTube video is how to speak so that people want to listen. It is outstanding. I use Julian's techniques in court. And I also use Julian's techniques when I'm introducing people in the metaverse or if I'm presenting in the metaverse. So what I want to do is just encourage everyone, go to YouTube and search for Julian Treasure, how to speak so that people want to listen, or go to my communication tips article and really dive deep on some of the things we're going to talk about. All right, so when it comes to communicating, okay, it looks like we have a question. Aaron, why don't you jump in and ask the question? Totally okay, give me a chance to have a cup of coffee. Or I will look at the chat. Okay, we have a question here in the chat. And by the way, you guys, I love Q&A, so ask your questions. This question is, do you only meet existing clients on the metaverse, or would you intake initial meeting as well? If so, how do you proceed with client identification of new clients? Great question. So here's what we do is we make the metaverse an option. Years ago, during the early days, look, I started practicing in '86. Our law firm website went up in '95, '96, and I've embraced social and video and live video and social audio, and now the metaverse ever since. Back in the day when social was brand new, we had a client come to our office, and she had a big case. And she was very upset about her attorney not keeping her informed, not responding to her questions. It was a big time communication issue. She was substantially injured in an automobile accident. And it was a case that I would have loved to have represented her on, but she hired someone who I knew, who was very, very good, but he was also older and he wasn't that familiar with social media. So I told her he was already being represented by a great lawyer. Let me pick up the phone, see what I can do with this. And long story short, he didn't want anything to do with her. The bridges have already been burned by that time. And I asked her, I said, what was the problem? She said, well, I just want to communicate using text messages or on Instagram direct messages. I'm a student. I don't use snail mail. I don't like email. And I said, that's fine. Let's communicate subject to state bar rules using direct messages. 6 months later, I had a happy client. The case was done for $1.6 million. And it was simply because we allowed ourselves to give ourselves permission to communicate in a way that the client found comfortable. So to answer this question, what we do during a new client reach out, whether they reach out to us about having questions or they've retained us and they want to meet with us, is we always ask them, and the most important question is, how would you like us to communicate with you? And if they say snail mail, in person, email, telephone, whatever it may be, metaverse, then we go out of our way to accommodate that client in that fashion. When it comes to new metaverse clients that we're meeting with, during the initial client intake, my team will say, would you like to meet Mitch, in the office? If you're driving down to Los Angeles, instead of fighting traffic, you can hop on a Zoom. You can meet in one of our virtual office spaces. Virtual office spaces? What do you mean? Oh, we offer beautiful conference rooms where you can meet with Mitch in private or other team members, just like you would a Zoom, except it's a little bit more personal. You can bring in photos and exhibits, and you can manipulate 3D objects if it's a product liability case. And so we ask that question to the client, and then we listen, and then we satisfy that client's needs. So that's what's working for us. And thank you for that question. Let me get rid of the chat box. But what it's going to say is, once you're in the metaverse space, I want you to focus on your voice, focus on your audio, and focus on using metaphors and storytelling techniques. The 5 different storytelling techniques that we use, and I've got them listed here, I'm just going to share them with you, are the hero's journey, the in medias res, where you start in the middle of a story to capture their attention, and then you back up and tell the rest of the story. The flashback, non-linear narrative, easy for me to say, the episodic, anecdotal, the framing, and nested narrative. If you're not familiar with those 5 different approaches that work really, really well, just pull up ChatGPT, ask for the 5 most popular storytelling techniques, and it will share those approaches with you. You want to use these different techniques when you're explaining something. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat. When you're explaining something in the metaverse, I've just found that using stories just makes a huge difference. Incorporating metaphors into our storytelling, into our communications, is also very powerful. Of course, very powerful in a court of law also. Ann Miller, who wrote the book on metaphors, is a dear friend of mine. I had a 2-week wrongful death case, tragic case, and the night before closing, some new facts came up during the trial. And I called Ann and I said, Ann, I need something special for my closing argument tomorrow. I need a metaphor that's just gonna really, really give the jury something to hang their hat on, so that when they go back into the deliberation room, it's something they'll remember, it's something they can repeat, it's something that really will tie my entire case together. And in that particular case, she came up with the metaphor: the defendants were playing Russian roulette with my client's son's life, spinning the wheel in Russian roulette. And that's after the case came down and the jury came back with $1 million verdict. That's what the jury focused on, was that metaphor. The power of metaphor works in trial, it works during mediation, it also works in the metaverse. For example, if you're representing somebody whose family member was harmed or killed tragically by a distracted driver, you could say something like, well, listen, this is, let's just say I'm in a mediation with defense counsel and I'm trying to make my point in the metaverse. I could say, look, in the United States, 3,000 people are killed each year by distracted driving. I mean, that's a statistic. It doesn't really make the point. It doesn't emphasize the point. But if my avatar, through my voice, while I'm using my hands, while I'm walking around the room, tells that defense attorney, look, there's a big problem with distracted driving. 3,000 people each year are killed in the United States. That's the equivalent of 10 fully loaded commercial airliners crashing each and every year. It's not okay. There's something about metaphors that just work. And I think when we use metaphors, when we're having communications in the metaverse, it really does help us hammer our point home. That's a metaphor. And it will separate a very average metaverse interaction between you and your client, or you and opposing counsel, or you on stage speaking to an audience, into something special that people will remember moving forward. The other thing I like to focus on are anchor points in the metaverse. When you're talking to a client, when you're talking in a conference room to 6 people sitting around the table, when you're on stage, what you're going to find is you need to intentionally move your avatar using your keyboard, your mouse. If you have a headset on, walking around in your space. Just like in trial, when I'm talking about a point or an issue or a piece of evidence that doesn't favor my client's position, I'll normally do so from the far end of the jury box, away from the witness stand and away from the judge. I'll minimize the impact, but I want to be the first one to talk about it. If I'm talking about something super important that I want the jury to focus on, I'll stand down at the end of the jury box with the witness behind me and the jury behind me to give me credibility while I focus in on that particular issue. The jury subconsciously starts to figure out, if I'm standing at one end of the courtroom, it's probably nothing that important. If I'm down at the other end of the courtroom, it's something they want to pay attention to. It's using anchor points. Anchor points work really, really well in the metaverse. So pay attention to where you're standing and using anchor point approaches during your metaverse meetings, during your presentations, and during your client interactions. I think it's really, really important. Also pay attention to your body movement and body language. When you have a headset on, you have hand controllers. And when you move your hand controllers, it moves your hands in the metaverse. Oftentimes using a keyboard, depending on which keys you touch, will allow your avatar to move. And when you speak, your avatar will also move. Pay attention to the platform you're using. Pay attention to your avatar controls so that you're using your hands, just like you see me doing now on Zoom, right? It makes a difference when you're connecting, when you're building rapport. Most people you watch in the metaverse aren't doing the things that we're talking about. And if you do these simple things, and most of you do this in court anyway, if you do it in the metaverse, it's going to help you stand out, like I said, above all the noise. Another little secret we use is when we're having conferences with clients. What we'll do is we'll click and set up a template conference room. We'll then click and copy that conference room for the particular client. We'll name it, with the client company's name. We'll pull their logo in. We'll put some marketing material that we have into the conference room, whether it's a video, whether it's a PDF, whether it's a portal that someone can click and go to our attorney-client recommendations and testimonials. You can do all this within 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time. But what I've had happen is clients coming into these conference rooms that we've set up, potential clients, where literally one tech client, 60 seconds into my spiel, said, "Mitch, stop talking." They walked into a conference room, they had their latest YouTube marketing video, they had their logo, they had some other things in there that they had been working on. "Mitch, stop talking, you're our lawyer. We want you." Like, it just knocked their socks off. And so what they didn't know is it didn't take us hours to set up. It only took a couple of minutes. It was less time to set up than maybe getting a Zoom ready and sharing a couple of tabs like I did already during today's Zoom. That's how much time it takes to really make an impression. You also, for example, if you're dealing with a defective product case, if you're dealing with a breach of contract case, you can import images, you can import 3D objects into your space. So you can actually hand the object to an expert and have that expert rotate and examine and show you what broke, what caused the object to fail. You can bring in PDFs and other images to go through contract language, contract provisions, contract paragraphs to discuss with your client. So it's a very interactive type of environment, depending on what type of metaverse space you're using. I want everyone to kind of double down on using all of these things. Looks like we have another question. Let me go over to the comments. And I am ready, Q&A. Where's my Q&A? There it is. Okay, Q&A. The question is from Ashish Chandra. How would you use private blockchain technology and metaverse for dispute resolution process? Interesting. Let's table that until the end, because I do have a couple of suggestions with using Web3 technology moving forward. For example, in my mediation, I'm transitioning from full-time litigation and trial work into private mediation. I'm really excited about this. And we've already done dozens of mediations, and I'm having a blast doing it, especially when it comes to Web3, metaverse, and AI tech issues. But what we're doing is we're also setting up an AI resolution type of process. And so I think that kind of plays into answering that question. So bear with me and we will get to it. Let me see if I can close that. Okay. Now, here's where I see a lot of people dropping the ball. You've met with a client, you're on stage, you're doing a presentation, you're selling products or services, you're selling a legal plan, whatever it may be, and you've got everyone's attention. What you don't want to do is then sign off and say that you're done. And if anyone's interested, to go to your website. Don't make them do more work. What you want to do, excuse me, let me mute. Like I said, I'm suffering from a cold, so bear with me, everybody. What you want to do is use technologies like DocuSign and have links or portals. Portals are, and spatial, are little floating circles that you can hyperlink to. So I can have a portal set up in my conference room, and most of the metaverse sites have something like this. And let's say we strike a deal during a mediation, we have a settlement, or a client wants to retain us and sign the retainer agreement. You can set up a private portal where they just click while they're in the session. It brings up the document. They can go, it takes them to DocuSign. They can digitally sign the retainer agreement. They can digitally sign the contract while they're in the virtual conference room with you, and you can close the deal. So when it's appropriate, I think it's really smart to reduce the friction and plan ahead using technologies like DocuSign from within your virtual office spaces, to close deals, to document settlements, especially during mediation. It helps us assist parties with experiencing buyer remorse. We want to get their John Hancock, we want to get their digital signature on the settlement agreement. So I think that's super important. And once again, that's something that we didn't pick up on until about 6 months into doing Metaverse, attorney-client retainer sessions, doing Metaverse mediations, because we're doing it old school. We're going to circulate a settlement agreement via email. We'll shoot you out a retainer agreement, and inevitably there's always some kind of hiccup, some kind of problem. So by incorporating that approach to your Metaverse approach, that's what works really good. I have a note down here. Boy, sorry about this, everybody. I have a note down there. By the way, I spoke in Toronto. I didn't get a chance to connect with Madeline, but I spoke in Toronto at a big lawyer convention. We had like 30 different countries, 25, 30 different states here in the United States. And when I took the stage, I was the closing keynote. I talked about Web3, the metaverse, and AI. And when I showed up at the conference, I had just been hit a week earlier, right between the eyes, with a friend's paddleboard. I didn't need stitches, but it did look like Mike Tyson just punched me right in the face. My eye was split, swollen. And I asked everyone on stage, if you're meeting with a new client right now, do you want to look like this? And then over my shoulder, I pulled up a slide of one of my metaverse avatars that looks pretty darn good in a nice, expensive suit, or like this, right? And everyone's like laughing, like, absolutely. And the reason I'm bringing this up is when you're sick like me right now, or you're not firing on all cylinders, or if you get hit between the eyes by a paddleboard, you can use your avatar and these metaverse options, in addition to obviously traditional phone or text messaging, direct messaging on social, to engage and build rapport and close those deals. And one of the things I like about the metaverse is, if I do come off the water late in the morning and I have a client meeting and they want to meet in the metaverse, as far as they're concerned, I'm spit and polished and ready to go. They don't see me without having shaved, or like I said last October, with a gash between my eyes. So just pay attention to all the different advantages the metaverse brings. I have a note here just to talk briefly about artificial intelligence in the metaverse, because what we're seeing when I talk to my clients that are early users and adopters and entrepreneurs in the AI space and the Web3 spaces, here's what's going to be happening. Is you're going to be able to come into these metaverse spaces, and using your voice, or your text on your keyboard or on your phone, you're going to be able to say, create a professional legal conference room with a sunset looking out the window and soft music playing in the background. And literally within 10 seconds, that's going to be what's set up for you. That's where this technology is going within the next 12 to 18 months. It's already out there. But it's going to get better. And I think what's interesting is by thinking about AI technology, okay, by utilizing Chat GPT 3.5 or 4 during your metaverse sessions, you can have multiple screens. And if a question comes up that you're not comfortable with providing an immediate answer to, while the conversation is taking place in the metaverse. If you're on your laptop or desktop, you can bounce over to a different tab. You can do a search. You can check the client file. You can check your private data set, which is what we're doing in AI right now for a client file. And the answer is literally at the tip of your fingers. When it's your turn to speak again as an avatar, the other people in the room or in the conference or in the office, they don't even know that you've left as an avatar. You're running your avatar on one screen and you're looking at the client file, the deposition transcript, the AI in another screen. I think that that's, really, really important. Now, wrapping things up, let's just assume that you've got all this down, you know what you're doing. Let me, hang on a second. I'm going to share one more screen. I think this is probably one of our more important screens because doing all of these things is important. But if you don't have any clients, if you don't have anyone joining you in your metaverse events, if nobody knows what you're doing, if you're the best kept secret in town when it comes to the metaverse, then it's going to be a problem when it comes to building your brand and marketing your practice. So one of the mindsets that I've learned with the metaverse is we are using it as Zoom, like we would Zoom. For example, we're specifically inviting people into a particular event, a particular conference room for an hour, and having a conference, having a meeting, setting up something with that, on the fly. Like, I'm going to be in the metaverse all day long. If you have any questions, come by. You're probably going to hear a lot of digital crickets. You're not going to get a lot of traction. So you want to create your office event, whether it's a one-on-one with a potential client or a 1 to 500, at a metaverse conference you're speaking at, and then you want to promote that event. So what I want to share with you are 12 different ways that I think are really good at amplifying what you're doing in the metaverse to stand out above all the noise. So number one, you want to take your metaverse link, your event, and a public event, obviously not a private event with a client, but public events, share those events on social media. Use images, use videos that you can create in Canva that are moving and capture attention, and start promoting your metaverse events. Many times in the metaverse, you can click a couple of buttons and you can shoot a video of your space. You can walk around the space, you can do 360s, take those videos, download them, upload them into Canva, and then share this content on social media. Attract attention, the attention of people that may not even know you have a metaverse presence, so that they're interested and they click and they join you in your metaverse platform. You can go live from your metaverse platforms. For example, in Spatial, I can click a go live key. So if it's a public event, excuse me, oh man, sorry about that. For those of you just joining, getting over a cold, so I'm trying to hang in there. You can go live on Spatial and many other metaverse platforms. And what I mean by that is you can say, hey, listen to everyone in the community on Spatial. I'm going live and we're going to talk about XYZ. For example, an attorney, Ira Rothkin, who's one of the OGs of the coding and tech space. Ira and I did a webinar in Spatial on stage, showing creators and artists what they need to pay attention to when it comes to IP, when it comes to using contracts, when it comes to jurisdiction and venue with respect to their virtual art galleries. And we did live Q&A and it was awesome. Well, we clicked and went live. So it wasn't just to everyone that we were sharing out on social media from my platforms or Ira's platforms. People within the Spatial metaverse space were notified that we were going live and they would pop in and join us. So that's another way to kind of take the initiative and promote what you're doing. Before your event, you can create a blog post, use screenshots, and just let everyone know who your guest is, what you're going to be talking about. We use Agora Pulse and Lately AI to schedule our content. So if I'm in trial for 2 weeks, maybe the weekend before trial starts, my team and I will sit down and we'll schedule all this out. So each day, a tweet, a Facebook post, a LinkedIn post, TikTok, Instagram, these posts go out automatically, which help promote what we're doing in the metaverse. I think that's super important. You can also, as we're doing right now, you could push this Zoom into a big movie screen in your metaverse space. So you have, for example, a Zoom audience, people that are just comfortable with Zoom, people that aren't interested in the metaverse, digesting your content from Zoom, but also you're pushing that content to the metaverse. So your metaverse community that wants to come into your metaverse movie theater, for example, or your metaverse stage with the big screen behind it, they can watch the presentation, whether it's a video like this, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's a slide deck. It's just a good way to easily cross promote all at once. Interviews are a great way to start building your brand in the metaverse. For example, I could grab somebody from the Metaverse Bar Association and we could have a panel discussion on, what's the association about? What's the game plan here? Do you as a community have questions as to how you can become involved or more active in the MBA? And we can have real-time conversations. The reason interviews and panel discussions are so important and so valuable is that oftentimes everybody else on the show is sharing that link out with their audience. So when you're doing a show, it's not just your audience, everyone else is sharing it out, and you can really amplify the number of people that are paying attention, both live and after the fact, people sharing out the content. I talked a little bit already about cross-promoting. You can take this type of content and share it on the different platforms. You can use email and text updates to share your upcoming presentation. Once again, these are more like public metaverse presentations. Social audio, my favorite right now. Back in the day, I did enjoy Clubhouse. It allowed me to build my brand on social audio. In fact, David Meerman Scott, in his latest marketing book, because I was active on social in Clubhouse, actually did a chapter about how we were leveraging social audio. Well, for me, social audio on LinkedIn Live audio, super powerful just because of the LinkedIn audience, business people, right? Deep pocket business people for the most part, is to, what I'm looking at when it comes to legal services. You can take your metaverse presentation and you can actually broadcast it from within LinkedIn Live audio. I was in a LinkedIn Live audio and I was actually communicating with from the metaverse via, I think it was StreamYard, which is like Zoom, to all the top social media platforms. We were cross-promoting using social audio from within the metaverse on LinkedIn Live audio into these platforms. So I know there's a lot here, but just give thought to how can I amplify and cross-promote? Talking about trending topics. Once again, less metaverse, more content-specific creation ideas. For me, the best content as a lawyer that I've ever created has to do with commenting on trending legal topics, breaking news stories. What's the legal take on this? And doing it the right way, being positive, being unique, maybe offering a perspective that most lawyers haven't thought about. You can do this from the metaverse. You can have a live press conference from within your metaverse office or conference room to talk about this breaking news story. This worked so well for me on traditional social media that David Meerman Scott, who's now a friend of mine, had reached out to me twice and had me join him on stage at Tony Robbins' Business Mastery in front of thousands of people to talk about how we're doing the things that I'm telling you about right now. It worked before the metaverse. It's even going to work better after the metaverse and after you get more familiar with what's going on. Using QR codes, like I said, it reduces the friction. It keeps it easy to share your links. And a how-to page. If you're building out a metaverse presence and you're getting asked the same questions over and over, Mitch, how do I connect with you in the metaverse? What type of Wi-Fi connection do I need? What kind of technology? Can I do it on my phone? Do a Q&A or a how-to page where you can just simply send that link to your clients. You might have one page for existing clients. You might have another page for prospective clients with testimonials, maybe a couple of videos embedded in, but you want to make it really easy for your team to share access information, to answer questions, and everything else in between. Jumping real quick back to the mediation question, because I am towards the end of my presentation and I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. As far as blockchain technology goes, yes, what we're doing is we're looking at, and it's early, and I don't think we're ready yet to do any of this, but we're looking at trying to tap into some of the advantages of Web3 technology, including AI, to assist with the mediation process. One end of the spectrum is everyone agrees to have us submit their fact patterns or evidence their disputes, their issues, both in a confidential fashion. Each party doesn't know what the other party's submitting. And we allow AI to ascertain what might be the most promising approach to moving forward, right? To turn conflict into collaboration. That's something I'm really excited about because I think it works really well. And then the other thing has to do with tapping into smart contract and blockchain technology to continue moving forward with documenting what's been agreed to, with using non-fungible token technology to solidify positions, digital assets, products and services for intellectual property rights purposes. There's a lot going on. That's not the purpose of today's show, but I just wanted to say, yeah, we're paying attention to all of these things because I think they're game changers. I think what we're experiencing right now in real time is going to have a greater impact on the world. Metaverse, AI, Web3 technology, than electricity, the printing press as we know it combined. I mean, this is real time. It's changing everything. Question here from Ari: can you tell us which mediators are doing mediations in the metaverse? I might be the only one. I mean, I don't know. It's something that we're figuring out, and we're having success at doing it. And here's the challenge with Web3 technology, everybody. We don't know with all the new legal issues what the outcome's going to be, right? The Andy Warhol Supreme Court case here in the United States, the Jack Daniels follow-up case, when it comes to IP issues, what are the courts going to determine? And a lot of companies don't want to spend the time and money and invest in years of litigation when we're not really sure what the underlying issues are, what the legal ramifications are going to be. If we can bring those parties into a Web3 environment so they can have a private mediation, get this thing done so that everyone can move forward with their products and services and not get wrapped up in litigation and kind of get a feel for where they stand. That's where I see the value of mediation in the Web3 spaces. So that's what we're doing and why I'm so interested in all this. So great questions. And it looks like, let me close my screen here. We've got Aaron joining us. Aaron, it's good to see you. I hope we covered everything, and I'm open for live Q&A, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, this was good. Sorry, did you see, I know you were looking at the questions from the Q&A box. Did you see there was a question in the chat box?
Lay it on me.
How would you integrate blockchain technology to support dispute resolution process in the metaverse? And I think you spoke about that.
Right.
I don't know if we need to elaborate on that.
Here's the challenge with blockchain technology right now is there's too much friction on using this technology. I get it. You know, I'm using it. I purposefully put myself out there to try to learn as much as I can, whether I'm creating and selling NFTs, artwork, videos that I'm shooting, you know, from my GoPro, I'm creating NFTs, and, you know, whether it comes to accepting payment from clients using different crypto wallets, whatever we can do. I'm trying to figure all of this out, whether it comes to using NFTs to distribute, for example, with some of our clients. Aaron, if you're a tech client and you want to play this game with us, we can create a personalized NFT. So it's an unlockable NFT that gives you access to our CRM. It gives you access to all the files and records, you know, in our CRM database via a unique URL. We can do all that, but it's just easier right now for me to send you a link. Like, it's overkill, it's too complicated. But I do see this technology eventually evolving where it's going to change everything. You know, so for example, if I'm having a conference and I'm doing a presentation, I'll be able to make an NFT available where once you purchase this NFT, it'll give you access to that virtual metaverse conference. It will give you a discount, you know, 50, 75% discount to the next 3 conferences that are coming up. And it'll give you backdoor access to private courses or private videos or private, you know, weekly Q&A metaverse experiences with either me or someone else on my team to do live Q&A with clients or potential clients. So yeah, this technology is all coming together, and it's really interesting to watch what people outside of the legal industry are doing to leverage this technology in a way that we as lawyers can bring into the practice of law to make it better, faster, more efficient, and create better client experiences.
That's the balancing act that we all have as lawyers to struggle with, that I've had some conversations recently, is how do you use the technology to make your practice more efficient while at the same time not relying too heavily on the technology and providing poor services to clients because you're really just giving them generic materials and information that's being generated by an AI or a chatbot or something like that. So there is value to having a human putting connections
Sure.
together and knowledge and all that, rather than just putting a question into chat gpt when you get an email from a client, put that question in chat gpt and then copying and pasting that into the email, and then it may or may not be the right answer or may not be quality. So it's like, how do you, that obviously is super efficient because you don't have to do anything except copy and paste at that point. But thinking about the question, adding to it, using your knowledge and expertise, and then using resources that are available to you to supplement that, or processes that make your day-to-day tasks easier, things like that. So that's kind of the balance. And what we found is that there are a lot of there's a lot of content being put out there now, and we don't know if it was created by a person or by AI, and we don't also know if whether it's accurate or not. So that's
Lot
sort of
it's
the balancing act, right? The struggle between efficiency and not relying too heavily on it, and how do you draw that line? But yeah, we
so
are
so
just. Oh,
so
sorry,
Aaron,
you want to
Aaron, real
quickly
quick.
respond to that because we've got
I
to
do, because
click
it's
off in
super
two
important.
minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's super important because look, it doesn't matter to me if something was created by AI. It's here, it's changing everything. We need, as lawyers, we need to move forward and we need to understand that this is happening and we need to embrace it. I encourage everyone to watch the conversation with Peter Diamandis, brilliant scientist, physician, guys mining satellites. He's got Singularity University. I just shared an interview on my Twitter and LinkedIn feeds yesterday that will double down and explain to everybody why it's not a matter of AI being used or who's creating behind it. It's the fact that if we're not embracing this technology, we're going to be out of business. That's how powerful this is. And I was in court 2 weeks ago, and opposing counsel was citing bad cases to the judge that have been overruled. And I'm thinking to myself, when people talk about hallucinations with AI is
Hmm.
going to train itself. It's going to get better, right? The only thing that lawyer was thinking about was his tea time later on that afternoon. He's not going to spend any time getting up to speed on getting better. So what I'm sharing with everybody is create the mindset to learn as much as you can about the metaverse, Web3, and AI, because it's here. It will be the standard of care, I believe, in the next 12 to 18 months. I'm working on a new post, and pay attention to it because, Aaron, what you guys are doing in the Metaverse Bar Association, you're exposing all of us to this new technology, these new opportunities, this new way of thinking as lawyers, which eventually will become the norm and not the exception.
Well, this has been great. Yeah, thank you, Mitch, for powering through and speaking today despite your cold. And
You're
to the
welcome.
attendees for supporting the METBA, the Metaverse Bar Association. So please keep an eye out for future programs. And if you enjoyed this, or if you have any feedback, please keep an eye out. There's going to be a survey sent out, and or you can go on the website metba.io, hello@metba.io if you want to write to us directly, because your feedback really does help shape and guide and improve the future programs, which we're trying to do for you. So the more you give us feedback, the better. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Mitch, and have a good weekend.
You too. Thanks for having me. Bye bye, everybody.